What's going on? Welcome to Asian Cosell, and this is going to be an interesting video. Why South Koreans refuse to go woke. This video is going to be explained by the Asian Boss CEO. So we'll try to break down as much as possible. So let's first get into the video.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about why South Korea refuses to go woke, it's important to first define what woke means in the context of South Korea. Normally, we would conduct street interviews to hear directly from the people of South Korea and do our absolute best to get both sides of the story and their reactions. But for the reasons I'll explain shortly, we're going to try something a little different for this video. You see, being able to express an opinion presupposes that you're sufficiently informed on the issue at hand because you actually looked into the details and you understand the context. That's why when we ask people about a particular issue or topic, you can tell right away if they have no idea what they're talking about, because all we hear is people repeating some generic talking points that they heard from somewhere else. That somewhere else usually being the mainstream media that tends to grossly simplify the issue at best and actively or selectively misrepresent the issue at worst. So for the purposes of this video, I'll do my best to explain the context based on our research. Don't get me wrong, we did conduct a street interview, which you'll see a little bit later. And hopefully by then you will have a much better understanding of where people are coming from. So this issue of wokeness is directly tied to the proposed anti-discrimination bill. You see, South Korea is only one of the two countries among OECD countries, the other one being Japan, that does not have a comprehensive anti-discrimination law, which sounds really bad, right? You might be like, wait, isn't having an anti-discrimination law a good thing? Like, what the hell is wrong with South Korea? In fact, even in the local mainstream media, you'll see headlines like South Korea is being urged to enact anti-discrimination law to align itself with global standards. I'm not sure what they mean by global standards. Like, what is that, Western standards? But be that as it may, passing the anti-discrimination law just sounds like the right thing to do. After all, we shouldn't be discriminating against anyone, period. But the issue of the anti-discrimination bill recently escalated when over 1 million Koreans filled the streets of Seoul to attend the largest public mass service of its kind in recent memory. Actually, the organizers claimed that the number was as high as 2 million Christians who attended the service both offline and online. But if you read or watched the mainstream news, you would never know about it because they either completely ignored the event or downplayed the size of the crowd, claiming that only hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets to protest the proposed anti-discrimination bill. Well, you're watching the aerial footage right now, so you tell me how small this group of protesters looks, and for that matter, if this event looks like a violent protest in the first place. The first time I watched this, I was confused because even to a non-religious person like me, it just looked like a regular church service. So why did the mainstream media try to downplay the numbers and mischaracterize people's peaceful behavior? What's so damn controversial about this proposed anti-discrimination bill? You see, when they talk about the anti-discrimination law in South Korea, it can be divided into two categories. The devil's in the details. One is anti-discrimination law that protects specific individuals in specific circumstances, commonly referred to as individual anti-discrimination laws, while the other one is known as the comprehensive anti-discrimination law. It's this latter category of a comprehensive anti-discrimination law with its overtly broad and vague application that is at the center of all the outrage. It turns out South Korea already has the first category of anti-discrimination laws in place. These laws are even enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of Korea. That's South Korea. Article 11 of the South Korean Constitution provides that all citizens are equal before the law, and there shall be no discrimination in political, economic, social, or cultural life on account of sex, religion, or social status. Interesting, but there's more. Article 32 of the Constitution further provides that special protection shall be accorded to working women and they shall not be subject to unjust discrimination in terms of employment, wages, and working conditions. As you can see, this clause specifically protects working women from unjust discrimination in employment and labor rights. So, in accordance with the South Korean constitution, all kinds of anti-discrimination laws to protect individuals have already been enacted, and they've been around for a long time. For instance, Gender Equality in Employment Act protecting women was enacted in 1987. The Employment of Foreign Workers Act protecting foreign workers was enacted in 2003. Prohibition of Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Act was enacted in 2007. You get the idea. But critics and activists have long argued that this just isn't enough.
And yeah, so, everything is pretty much in place here in South Korea. But yet, the people in the West, oh, you're not doing enough. Oh, yeah, it's not, you're now not allowing all of a sudden, transgenders, right? Going, hey, I identify as a woman and I want to play in women's sports. Yeah, and I don't blame South Korea for not wanting all of this. Because how did it work out in America? Didn't work out too well. And not to bring this up, but San Jose State. San Jose State had a transgender male on that team. But let's continue.
That South Korea needs the second category, a more comprehensive anti-discrimination law that extends beyond employment situations and covers any hypothetical scenario. This rationale on the surface appears reasonable because someone who's unemployed could also face discrimination, needs to be protected, right? Another rationale that I've heard is that the rights of North Korean defectors in South Korea are not adequately protected under the current individual anti-discrimination law. Fair enough. But once you actually read the language of the bill, you might understand why this comprehensive anti-discrimination bill, first introduced in 2007, has been rejected more than 8 times in the span of the last 17 years. Get this. The proposed comprehensive bill broadens the current definition of discrimination to include, among others, unfair treatment based on ideology, sexual orientation, gender identity. Furthermore, under this new bill, any indirect discriminatory act that disproportionately disadvantages certain groups are also prohibited. Okay, so you can see where this is going, right? Ideology, sexual orientation, gender identity, certain disadvantaged groups, etc. At its core, this proposed bill isn't really about protecting people's rights across the board outside of employment settings or even about protecting North Korean defectors, as proponents claim it to be. It's all about playing identity politics for the trans community. Specifically, it focuses on adapting the Western notion of gender identity, which disregards the biological distinction between men and women. So you can see the connection between woke ideology and this bill, right?
Just as I said about, San Jose State, the choices of Title IX, it's even, that transgender male violates Title IX, but America goes, no, it doesn't. We need to give every player, not if he's a biological male in women's sports. So that's one of the examples I'm using. Like, what the hell are you having males in transgender sport and, women's sports? Because all over California and America, we've seen this. And how's it working out in America? Not too well, is it? So let's see. But this is where, Korea doesn't want to go there. And they don't want another America. Even if, America, and I'm an American, we have a lot of influence in South Korea. No, we do not want that. But let's continue.
Now, I want to show you a clip, which is from a recent National Assembly confirmation hearing for the chairman position of the National Human Rights Commission in South Korea. Chang Ho-an, A former justice of the Constitutional Court was appointed by the current president to lead the commission, and just watch how he handles both hostile and friendly questions. Let's go.
Yeah.
포괄적 차별금지법 제정에 찬성하십니까? 반대하십니까?
저는 그 부분에 대해서 지금 형태로는 반대합니다.
반대하신다?
예.
지금까지 이 2006년부터 이어졌던 이 국가인권회의 노력은 일부 막시스트들이 평등법 제정을 통해서 공산주의 혁명을 하기 위해서 주장하는 사람들의 주장이 반영된 노력이고 활동이었습니까?
이 부분에 대해서 많은 국민들이 반대하고 있습니다.
어떤
다만-
많은 국민들이 반대하고 있습니까?
그 부분
조사해 보셨어요?
제가 어떤 통계에 보면은 이게 제대로 알려지지 않았을 때는 훨씬 많은 분들이 찬성하는 것을 했지만 최근에 그거는 오히려 반대하는 분이 많은 걸로 제가 한
근거를 가지고
봤습니다.
말씀을 해주셨으면 좋겠고요. 자, 다음.
예, 제
제가
말씀을
잠시만요.
드리겠습니다.
자, 많은 사람들이 반대한다고 인식을 하고 계시는 거예요. 지금 그대로 얘기를 하셨고, 그 다음에
예.
지금 국제적으로 유엔에서부터 시작을 해서 많은 국제기구에서 한국 정부가 차별금지법을 포괄적 차별금지법, 뭐 평등법이라고 앞으로는 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 평등법을 제정해야 된다라는 수많은 국제인권기구의 권고가 있었습니다. 그런 사실은 알고 계시죠?
알고 있습니다.
그래서 권고에 따르지 않을 경우에 우리나라는 인권 후진국이 돼서 감시 대상 국가가 될 수 있습니다. 그런 사실도 알고 계시죠? 국가인권위원장께서 지금의 형태로 반대를 하신다면 그러면 국제적으로 인권 후진국의 오명을 쓰게 될 거라는
전혀
사실도
안
알고
그렇다고
계시죠?
생각합니다. 방금 말씀하셨듯이 국제기구의 그거는 권고일 따름입니다. 우리
권고니까
헌법에는
안 따라도 된다?
제 말을 계속하겠습니다. 우리 헌법에는 헌법에 의해서
알겠습니다.
체결 공포된
됐고요.
최근에 우리 후보님 파리 올림픽 보셨어요?
예.
이번에 복싱 경기에서 참 재미난 일이 있었습니다. 보면은 이 XY 염색체를 가진 선수가 여성 복싱 경기에서 금메달 획득했죠, 그죠?
예.
그 참여했던 이탈리아 선수는 뭐라고 하냐면 4년 동안 정말 땀과 눈물로서 준비해 왔는데 경기를 단 46초 만에 포기합니다. 그러면서 그 이태리 선수가 뭐라고 하는지 아세요? 내 목숨을 지켜야 했다라고 말하는 거죠. 그죠?
예.
이번 이제 케이스 같은 경우가 차별을 해소하려는 노력이 오히려 다른 사람에게 목숨을 걸어야 할 정도로 불공정하거나 위험한 사랑을 초래할 수 있다는 것도 보여준 중요한 사례라고 생각합니다. 우리 위원장님 어떻게 생각하십니까?
저도 그런 점들이 현재 차별금지법, 제한된 차별금지법의 문제점이라고 생각합니다.
저는 우리 성소수자들의 내적 자아, 정체성을 마땅히 저는 존중받아야 된다 생각합니다.
예, 저도 그렇게 생각합니다.
네, 그런데 우리가 헌법도 마찬가지지만 우리의 한 사람의 권리라는 것이 권리는 다른 사람의 권리의 시작에서 멈추는 거 아니겠습니까?
맞습니다.
다른 사람의 권리를 침해해서는 안 되는 거죠, 그죠?
맞습니다.
네. 그런데 지금 여러 가지 이런 사항이 지금 대한민국 사회에서 받아들일 준비가 되어 있느냐?
예.
우리 후보님 어떻게 생각하세요?
지금 말씀하신 대로 차별금지법 중에 큰 문제 중에 하나가 아까 말씀하신 거 외에도 역도 선수도 카나다에서 문제가 됐었습니다. 그 당시에 여성대회는 여성들이 우승을 하다가 트랜스젠더가 참석하니까 이제 트랜스젠더가 우승을 했어요. 그 다음에는 이제 또 성 정체성과 관련해서 이제 남성인 분이 자기가 여성인 것 같다 해서 이제 참석했는데 그분이 이제 계속 우승을 하게 되는 그런 현상이 나타나고 있습니다. 이런 부분에 비춰본다면은 이 차별금지법은 실질적으로 여성들이 운동 경기라든지 이런 데에서 차별을 받게 되는 것이 아닌가 그런 문제 제기가 많은 곳에서 제기되고 있습니다.
Yep. See, we do not want to see that. Like all of a sudden, of course, we have, pro volleyball here, and we have pro basketball for women's. Usually, the pro volleyball is pretty famous in Korea, but basketball, it's whatever's. They have fans, but not jam packed like the men's. But yeah, we do not want to see. Oh, a male transgender go, I identify as a woman and I'm going to play in this league and I'm going to dominate. No, Korea wants to avoid all of this crap, you know, and that's the problem. And even the Olympics. Oh my goodness. Yeah. What do you mean, Khalif? Winning. So let's see.
제가 인권위원장이 된다면은 모든 주장에 대해서 저는 충분히 숙고할 겁니다. 그리고 그것을 어떤 사상이나 이런 것에 의해서가 아니라 정말 이성적으로 숙고하고 또 그것을 강압적으로 일방적으로 밀어붙이기식이 아니라 민주적인 절차에 의해서 대등한 입장에서 이거를 충분히 논의할 겁니다.
So this was a nationally televised confirmation hearing, and shortly afterward, he was confirmed as the chairman of the National Human Rights Commission. Did you notice when a member of the opposition just kept cutting him off and mocking him for his communist revolution remarks? What Chairman Ahn meant by this was that if the bill were to pass, the oppressed minority, in this case a trans community, could weaponize the law to push the boundaries of what the oppressor majority should accept, therefore ultimately infringing on people's freedom of speech. At this point, you might be thinking, come on, that's really overstretching the potential application of the law. Nothing like that is ever going to happen.
And how is that working out in the United States? I'm oppressed. Oh, how dare you use my pronouns? It's je, them, je, whatever the hell it is, We don't want to turn South Korea into the parts of America that we're dealing with in America, the pronouns. Oh my God. And that's what they use to weaponize. And then all of a sudden, you're like, yo, we're the oppressors. Oh, you males are the dominant oppressors. Oh no. So we want to avoid what it is. And I don't have a problem you live in your LGBTQ. There's people here living their life. I don't mind even if you want to say you're transgender. You're still living your life, except, they're just not overt about it like the United States, where we go to those college campuses. How dare you? So yeah, South Korea sees this. They don't want our college campuses to look like, a transgender craziness, and yeah, they do have their, yearly get-togethers for LGBTQ, if you didn't know. And, it's whatever's. But we don't want it to get like the United States. This is why a lot of people oppose, these little separate bills. We have one bill to protect all of us. But let's continue.
Happen? Well, we have a global audience, and I know a lot of you are watching this from the US as well. So you tell me if this doesn't sound like something that might happen in your country. The bottom line is that you heard what he said, and despite the opposition, the fact that his nomination was confirmed speaks volumes. But what about ordinary Korean citizens, you ask? Do they support the comprehensive anti-discrimination bill? And can they even define what a woman is? Well, conducting street interview is our specialty, so we hit the streets of Seoul to find out.
개인적으로는 믿고 계신 종교가 있으실까요?
없습니다.
개인적으로는 혹시 이 법안에 찬성을 하시는 입장인가요? 아니면 반대하시는 입장인가요?
차별금지법을 찬성하냐 반대하냐라는 거죠. 찬성하죠.
저도 왜 그런지 여쭤봐도 될까요?
여자이기 때문에 여자는 확실히 차별을 받잖아요. 남자들은 어떻게 생각할지 모르겠지만.
그러면 개인적으로는 이 법안에 찬성하시는가요? 아니면 반대하시나요?
저는 아직까지는 찬성하는 쪽이지만 정확히는 아직 잘 몰라가지고 네, 그렇습니다.
이 법안에 찬성하시나요? 아니면 반대하시나요?
저는 그 어느 쪽도 아닌 것 같아요. 약간 그 성소수자분들도 존중해야 되는 게 맞고 차별금지법이니까 차별을 하지 말라고 만든 법이고 그게 어떻게 보면은 보호도 맞지만 오히려 이 법 제정함으로써 너무 더 큰 갈등을 일으키는 건 아닌가라는 생각도 들어요. 어디서 들었는데 뭐 교도소에 갈 때 남자 교도소에 가야 하는지 여자 교도소에 가야 하는지 그거를 이제 자기가 선택할 수 있도록 했는데 뭐 여자 교도소 내에서 임신한 상황이 뭐 발생했을 때 이런 거를 봤어요. 그래서 그에 따른 부작용 같은 거를 뭐 미리 생각을 해서 그에 따른 법들도 먼저 다 이게 준비를 해놓고 나서 하는 게 맞다고는 생각이 들어요.
우선은 그 포괄적 차별금지법에 대한 긍정적인 것들만 많이 이렇게 이슈화 됐는데 그 안에 들여다 보면 너무 부정적인 것들이 많이 거기 안에다가 집어넣는 경우가 많이 있었어요. 그러다 보니까 종교인들이 발벗고 나섰던 것 같아요. 그러다 보니까 이게 10년 동안 계속 끌어온 문제고 그래서 요번에 더욱더 이슈가 돼서 그 100만 명이 나와서 예배를 드리고 집회를 했던 것 같습니다.
그렇다면 이런 법안이 처음에 어떻게 나오게 된 걸까요?
일단 아무래도 해외에서 먼저 많이 진행을 했다고 알고 있고, 그리고 우리나라에서는 그 반대 여론이 많이 심했어가지고 잘 진행되지 않았던 걸로 알고 있는데, 해외에서는 보통 많은 국가들이 차별금지법에 대해서 받아들인 걸로 알고 있어요. 네, 그 정도까지 알고 있습니다.
그러면 본인이 생각하셨을 때 스스로를 좀 보수적이라고 생각하시나요? 아니면 좀 상식적인 부분에 속한다고 생각하시나요?
처음에는 보수적이었는데 약간 해외여행 다녀오면서 약간 조금 되게 많이 열린 것 같아요.
그럼 조금 뜬금없는 질문이라고 느끼실 수도 있는데요. 여자의 정의가 뭐라고 생각하세요?
여자의 정의는 우선 생물학적으로 여자여야 된다고 생각을 하고.
그렇다면 남자가 본인이 여자라고 하고 여자 화장실을 이용한다면 주변 시선은 좀 어떨 것 같으세요?
안 좋겠죠. 딱, 제 입장에서 봐도 남자가 여자 그럼 분장을 하고 여자 화장실을 이용한다? 그러면 당연히 다수의 시선에서는 당연히 좋지 않게 바라볼 수 있겠죠. 누가 봐도 남자인데.
혹시 종교가 있으신가요?
Oh, just to let you know, here in South Korea, there are bathrooms that are unisex because, as you know, businesses don't have a second bathroom. So yeah, actually, sometimes it's a little bit like still, closed off. But yeah, we could actually go in the same bathroom. I could be using the urinal and she could be using the little stall next to me. So that's that is in Korea in some of the business. It is starting to go maybe just straight male, female bathrooms, but there's some places that are still unisex, just to let you know.
아요?
무교입니다.
그럼 여자의 정의가 뭐라고 생각하시나요?
임신을 할 수 있는가 없는가가 크다고 생각을 해요, 저는.
여성의 정의가 뭐라고 생각하시나요?
일단은 저는 염색체가 XX인 생물학적 여성이라고 저는 생각하고 있습니다.
여자라고 하는 게 그렇죠. 염색체로 정해져 있는 부분인데 그거를 뭐 다르게 표현을 할 수 있는 부분도 있을까요? 그렇게 생각을 하고 저는 참고로 저는 병원에서 일을 해서 그 생물학적인 그 뜻을 온전히 저는 여자의 의미를 강하게 생각을 하고 있거든요. 뭐 그런 직업이라서 그런 건 아니겠지만 아무튼 네 그렇게 성별을 자기가 표현할 수 있다고 생각하지는 않아요.
여자의 정의가 뭐라고 생각하세요?
고추가 없는 그냥 정말 그냥 일단 정의로만은 정말 염색체 XY인지 이제 그냥 그걸로 일단 기본적인 거는 네.
여자의 정의 신체적으로 여자면 여자지 않을까?
혹시 신체적으로라는 말은 뭐 염색체가 XX다 뭐 이런 생물학적인 말을
네,
쓰신 거죠?
일단은 근데 그 부분을 빼고 얘기할 수는 없을 것 같아요.
그럼 남자가 본인이 여자라고 하고 여자 화장실을 사용한다면 주변 시선이 어떨 것 같으세요?
일단은 변태 취급을 받고 안에 있는 여자들은 위협을 받겠죠? 위협을 당한다고 생각을 할 것 같아요.
그럼 그런 상황에서 저 남자가 왜 여자 화장실에 들어가지 하면서 의문을 제기한다거나 그 사람에게 한마디 한다면 그게 성소수자 혐오 발언이라고 생각하시나요?
그거는 아니죠. 그러니까 왜냐면은 그 사람의 의견을 존중하겠지만 그 사람도 다른 사람의 의견을 존중해서 내가 신체적으로 남성이고 하면은 내가 여자 화장실에 가고 싶고 내가 여자라고 생각을 하지만 정말 그렇게 생각을 안 한 사람도 있을 거 아니에요. 그 사람들도 배려를 해줘야죠.
이런 것 자체가 왜 혐오스러운 발언이 되는지 어렸을 때부터 남자는 남자, 여자는 여자 이미 성적으로 구별이 돼 있는데 그걸 가지고 당연한 원리를 가지고 반대를 한다는 것 자체가 저는 그것이 더 혐오스럽다고 생각을 합니다. 성적인 그런 전환들이 당연시되는 나라가 된다면 애를 키우는 부모의 입장으로서는 되게 두려울 것 같고 그리고 이때 지금 법이 통과되지 않을 때 더욱더 저는 반대를 할 수 있어야 된다고.
And you notice, everyone is defining what a woman is, what a male is, and then of course, in the United States, I mean, I've seen like school board meetings where a parent has to come and go, "Hey, what the hell is this male doing in a woman's bathroom?" Because U.S. is male and female, and now some places gender. And yeah, going, what the hell is a male doing in my female's bathroom? I don't, and he's talking, and he brings his daughter with him and says, "Yeah, do you want a male?" She goes, "No, I'm scared of that." Yeah, what the hell? And that's the effery that we're dealing with in the United States. The laws have gone so crazy with them, and it's the law, and you're like, what the hell? And we don't want that confusion in South Korea, but you see everyone's identifying what a male is, what a female is, and in college campuses, oh yeah, it's okay if he a male identify as a woman. Oh, it's okay. It's crazy.
그 목소리를 내세워야 된다고 생각이 듭니다.
이런 게 구분이 명확하게 지어지지 않는다면 어린 청소년들이 이런 걸 확립해야 할 시기에 혼란을 겪을 것 같아요. 특히 우리나라는 특수적으로 남자는 군대에 가야 하는데 이 병역 문제도 참 곤란해질 것 같고 네, 그리고 여대에 그러면 남학생들을 어떻게 여학생이라고 주장하시는 분들을 어떻게 입학시킬 것인지 그거에 대해서도 되게 논란이 많이 일어날 것 같습니다.
그 자유라는 이름과 사랑이라는 이름과 존중이라는 이름으로 너무 무분별하게 이거는 리밋이 없어요. 예. 리밋이 없고 그거를 막 나간 얘기는 좀 뭔데 왜 살며 뭐 왜 법을 지키며 왜 지금 저희가 이렇게 밖에 나왔는데 옷을 차려입고 있으며 그렇잖아요.
And that's the problem we have in the United States, Let's keep changing those laws. Yeah. Hey, I'm a male, identifies female. I can do anything I want. Get on these female teams and win, win, win. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, as I said, how about San Jose State? San Jose State.
나중에 다 나체로 다녀도 아무 말 안 할 수도 있는 거고 존중이라는 부분이 적당한 경계는 가져야 된다. 그 적당한 건 제가 정의 내릴 수는 없지만 그거는 저희 모든 사람들과 문화와 나라가 잘 경계를 지켜가야 된다고 생각해요.
그렇다면 한국의 이런 포괄적 차별금지 법안을 통과시켜야 한다고 압박을 주는 다른 나라들에게 어떤 말씀을 하고 싶으신가요?
그건 옳지 않은 것 같은데요. 그러니까 우리나라도 우리나라만의 사정이 있는 거고 다른 나라에서 왈가왈부하는 것 자체가 저희가 그거를 드리지 않는다고 해서 다른 나라한테 피해를 주는 건 아니라고 생각하거든요. 그러니까 굳이 왈가왈부할 필요가 없이 우리나라에서 자체적으로 정해야 하는 문제라고 생각합니다.
시간이 좀 말해주지 않을까요? 저희가 급진적으로 변화하는 게 필요하진 않을 것 같고 지금 PC 사상도 계속 무너지고 있는 한국에 시간이 해결책을 좀 얘기해 줄 것 같습니다. 급하게 변할 거는 없다고 봅니다.
Your connections to the past are
Sorry
waiting.
about
Get
that.
Ancestry DNA for only $39.
Yep.
Okay, so a couple things you may have noticed. Number one, we asked whether people religious or not at first because we didn't want the answer to only come from Christians who may have attended the mass service earlier. Number two, most people who had a clear answer to our question, what is a woman, were the ones who actually supported the anti-discrimination bill at first. So you cannot even accuse them of being a bunch of conservatives or right-wingers. Now, if you want to accuse us of being biased, like, oh, why didn't you guys get opinions from the other side on what defines a woman? I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, there really isn't much we can do when we literally and randomly approached around like 100 people over multiple days, and they all gave us the same definition. You're more than welcome to try conducting the street interviews yourself, but when we asked people the question, how do you define a woman? Most of them were actually quite confused, like why we were asking such weird questions in the first place. Additional concerns raised by those who didn't want to show their faces included scenarios like individuals could potentially face legal action for just expressing personal opinions on social media. These aren't hypothetical fears either, because we've already seen similar issues emerging in Western countries with broader anti-discrimination laws. And it appears obvious that Koreans are wary of following a similar path without clear safeguards. So why do Koreans think this way? There could be a number of reasons from what we can gather. Number one, it's impossible to discuss this issue without acknowledging the influence of Christianity on Korean society, where Christians comprise roughly 30% of the population. Although we cannot verify this, you can apparently see more church crosses than McDonald's signs in Korea, and concepts like homosexuality and same-sex marriage, let alone any gender identity stuff, do not align with the values and teachings of Christianity. This means many churches view the proposed anti-discrimination bill as a threat to religious freedom, and they've become one of the most vocal opponents. Number two, even for non-religious Koreans, they live in a highly educated and competitive society that is rooted in traditional Eastern values. I'm talking about values like hard work and education. They're not dumb people. They take education extremely seriously, especially in subjects like math and science. And they're very accustomed to competing based on merit. As of 2023, almost 70% of South Koreans between ages 25 to 34 have some form of college degrees. So if you ask these smart and well-educated people about the definition of what is a woman, how do you think they'll respond? Well, you just saw their reactions. Number three, for many Koreans, especially younger generations, the debate around anti-discrimination law feels like a distraction from more pressing issues. South Korea has some of the highest housing prices in the world, coupled with stagnant wages and youth unemployment that exceeds like 10%. By the way, you keep hearing in the Western mainstream media how Korea's population is collapsing and that the country will completely disappear, right? Well, guess what? We've conducted enough street interviews in South Korea to know for a fact that most young Koreans are not even that concerned about the birth rate crisis because their economic survival, immediate economic survival, takes priority. You can also go check out the full version of that street interview video on our channel.
Yep, and yeah, and of course, I talk about even in my other video, the 4B movement, Oh, South Korea started this movement, and we're gonna do the same thing for Americans that are going, oh, we're gonna do or the female leftists, oh, we're gonna do the 4B. No, like he said, survival. Some of these kids are trying to survive, even in South Korea, even if it's advanced. We're trying to survive. That's where we're at right now. And like you said, birth rate. Yeah, that's not even a big issue to the youngsters. They're trying to survive.
So, what makes you think that they will spend time debating the gender identity stuff when the actual birth rate crisis doesn't even seem to be their top priority? You know what I mean? So, yeah, these would be some of the reasons why the majority of South Koreans seem to be against the bill. There's a large Christian population in Korea. Koreans in general are highly educated and have common sense, and they've got enough real life shit to worry about. Now, this Western woke ideology that allows men to identify as a woman in the name of compassion and acceptance is sometimes referred to as 피시주의 in South Korea, which translates to the ideology of political correctness. However, the term political correctness carries a different connotations in South Korea, as many Koreans associated with the West trying to impose its influence and identity politics on South Korea's traditional norm. A good example of this cultural clash was in Disney's The Little Mermaid. Absolutely tanked. I mean, it flopped at the South Korean box office a little over a year ago. And Western media outlets were quick to blame its failure on racist backlash from.
Yeah, racist backlash. But problem is Little Mermaid was what? A European, Yeah, and the character was, white and red hair. And nothing against the female that acted it. She did a pretty good job in, doing acting. But here's another problem. Checking boxes. Oh, yep, she black. Oh, maybe she might be LGBTQ. Oh, maybe she has she might even be Latinx. There's all these things, and this is the problem that we in the U.S. is dealing with. But South Korea doesn't want to go there. They damn well know how America has become. But let's continue.
From Koreans. We actually conducted a straight interview back then to get people's opinions on this issue, and you can watch the full version of the interview on our channel as well. But here are some of their responses.
Yep.
그러면은 그 디즈니 영화들이 대체적으로 한국에서 조금 사람들이 즐겨보는 편이라고 생각을 하시나요?
요즘은 아닌 것 같습니다. 요즘에 뭔가 뭐 저만 그럴 수도 있고 다른 주변 사람도 그럴 수 있을 것 같은데 뭔가 요즘 디즈니가 PC적인 거를 너무 의식을 많이 해가지고 영화가 나오는 것 같아가지고 별로 요즘에는 그닥 기대가 되는 것 같지는 않은 것 같아요.
한국의 이런 상황들을 보고 미국이나 서양 언론에서는 한국의 인종차별주의적인 반발 때문에 인어공주 영화가 망했다고 보도하고 있는데 이제 한국인 입장에서 이 보도를 들었을 때 어떤 심정이신가요?
말도 안 되는 소리죠. 지들은 맨날 똥 같은 영화 만들어가지고 우리 보고 보라고 하는데 뭐 그걸 왜 우리가 봐야 되는지. 우리는 솔직히 그런 거 뭐 인종차별 그런 거 모르겠고, 네. 이상한 영화 만들어가지고 그거 안 보면은 예를 들어서 뭐 건가에서 동의를 하지 않는다 그러면은 뭐 왜 동의를 안 하냐 이런 식으로 계속 뭐 가르치려고 드는 면이 있어가지고 자기들이 뭔데 왜 다른 사람들을 가르치려고 하는지 이해가 저는 안 되네요.
일단 한국이 단일 민족 국가이기 때문에 이런 인종차별 문제에 대해서 조금 보수적인 것은 사실이라고 생각을 합니다. 하지만 지금 이제 선진국이 되었고 또 더 글로벌화되고 있는 시점에서는 더 많은 사람들이 좀 오픈 마인드적인 시각으로 다른 인종을 바라보고 있는 것 같습니다. 그래서 이런 영화사 또한 이렇게 정치적인 올바름을 이렇게 강요하는 대신에 조금 더 이렇게 열려가고 있는 사람들의 마음을 설득할 수 있는 방식으로 영화를 만들고 대중과 소통하면 좋겠다고 생각합니다.
So, when the coverage of the failed Little Mermaid release in South Korea was dominated by accusations of racism, this kind of misrepresentation only fuels resentment among Koreans who feel unfairly judged by Western standards that really don't consider their reality. So the point is, when it comes to this whole gender identity stuff, most Koreans you talk to will see it as a strange Western social construct that has a zero grounding in reality. you might wonder, if the majority of South Koreans don't buy into this Western concept of gender identity, then why do the local media, polls, and some politicians, like the one you saw earlier, keep pushing this narrative that the majority of the South Korean population actually supports the proposed comprehensive anti-discrimination bill? According to a Gallup Korea poll conducted in May 2024, 57% of respondents said they supported the bill, while only 29% opposed it. So the statistics has been heavily cited by the local mainstream media and politicians as evidence that the majority of Koreans want this bill passed. It's like when somebody asks, hey, do you support anti-discrimination laws? Who's going to say no to that? It just sounds like a nice thing to support. And of course, the majority of the people are going to say yes to that, especially if they're put on the spot. However, it becomes a different story once they learn about what's actually in the bill. An alternative poll that asked 3,000 people over the age of 18 who are familiar with the bill showed a completely opposite result from the Gallup poll.
Oh.
This time, 63% opposed the bill,
Oh.
while only 37% supported it.
Mm.
You see, this tells us that the more people understand the bill's specifics, the more likely they're to oppose it. This is why you cannot always rely on poll results at face value. They can easily be manipulated by the media based on how the questions are framed. So why would they go to this extent to manipulate the poll result? Honestly, feel free to share your thoughts, but we can speculate that the only motivating factor for the proponents of this bill is their desire to virtue signal to the world about how advanced South Korea is in terms of human rights, simply to save face. That's because every time they get reasonable pushback with specific details and consequences, they just shut down the discussion and resort to saying, oh, but the UN and International Human Rights Organization recommended it. And they'll think we're a third world country if we don't get this done. You know, I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but speaking of international human rights organizations, if it's true that these organizations are putting pressure on South Korea to pass this bill, as some South Korean politicians claim, I find it a bit ironic that we're not even holding North Korea to the same standard. After all, aren't they the isolated communist country with truly questionable human rights records? Instead, the focus is on South Korea, one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world, which is apparently falling behind in protecting human rights in the eyes of the international community because they refuse to budge on gender identity. Right. In any event, as it currently stands, the comprehensive anti-discrimination bill seems to be dead in the water, as it is unlikely to secure sufficient support for enactment. Ultimately, its progression will depend on shifts in public opinion, political will, and the influence of advocacy and opposition groups. Look, I don't have a skin in the game. All I care about, and this is one of the reasons why we started Asian Boss, is that for better or worse, the Western mainstream media controls the international news narrative, and South Korea and other Asian countries are portrayed through the prism of Western cultural bias. Everything that deviates from their Western culture standard or norm is often characterized as weird or backward. Well, on this particular issue, after everything you just heard, what do you think? Is South Korea going to become the laughingstock of the world and be seen as a third world country in terms of human rights? You know, this is why we work so hard to conduct all these street interviews, because only by gathering the most authentic, on-the-ground perspectives from locals in Asia can you truly understand what's really going on in that region. Again, it's not about the sample size being too big or too small, because you've just seen how easily polls can be manipulated. So yeah, take our videos as a conversational starter. Look deeper into the topic, think critically, and come to your own conclusion. Let me know if you find this format helpful, and if you'd like me to do more of these long-form explainer videos, which...
So, yeah, and yeah, that's majority of the video. But yeah, we, you know, we all faced it enough, especially in the U.S., enough of this identity politics, you know. Yeah, and as you can see, yeah, South Korea wants to just keep it the way it is, you know. And yeah, if you're LGBTQ, you can live freely out here. No one's gonna say anything. Even if you say, I'm a transgender, this or that, we leave you alone. Most people here in Korea just leave you alone. So yeah, and as an American, I just live quietly here and just do my YouTube videos and go to work. So it is what it is. But no, we don't want to see all that stuff in the United States come over here and say, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. No, most of the world now is like, no, they're just pretty much saying, F you, United States. You are not going to bring that in there. Just like I've seen in Africa, you need to pass a gender, finding law. And they're like, no, go screw yourself. And I don't have a problem if you live that life, but don't shove it down our throats. No, no, no. And the sports here, they're not shoving it down our throats, but all the other sports in the main sports in the USA, oh, we're having Pride Night, we're crying out loud. So, yeah. So, here in South Korea, yeah, that bill has been opposed. Let's have this, let's have that. No, we don't want this place to turn into mayhem like the United States is. All right, so if any of you enjoyed any of this content, please give me the HKO special, help the king out, hit the like, subscribe, and comment. And wherever you are, stay safe, and I'll see you in my next video.